Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is boycotts against Israel. The world will suffer because they are turning Israel into a pariah state. But do not worry, Israel will continue to flourish. Israel has been turned into a pariah nation. Countries once considered to be friends of the Jewish state now shun her. Universities that once welcomed her academics now slam their doors shut. Throughout the world, organizations boycott Israel. Israeli creativity in the arts, in medicine, in science, in music are all turned away by forums, festivals, and faculties. And why? Because on October 7th, 2023, Hamas chose to mass murder Israelis, to burn Israeli babies, to mutilate Israeli bodies, to sexually abuse Israeli men and women, to destroy Israeli homes and agricultural fields, to kidnap, torture, and starve innocent men, women, and children. Because Hamas chose to engage in barbarous acts, because Hamas chose to engage in heinous crimes against their neighbor, Israel is being booted out of much of the Western world. Did you get that? Yes. But you know what? Israel and Israelis are extremely creative. And despite being shunned by the international community, Israel continues to create, to prosper, and to come to the aid of those in need. Certain faculties may be closed to Israelis, but their university colleagues come to visit Israel. Investors pour into Israel despite the world labeling them a pariah. And the creative momentum in Israel has not been squelched. Israel is hurting, but Israelis know that they are doing the right thing. They are doing the only thing they can do. Israelis believe, as I believe, and as most of you believe, that Israel is correct in their actions, that they are morally and ethically correct, not just justified, but correct in destroying Hamas. Unfortunately, people, societies, and nations once thought to be moral now feel comfortable embracing evil. So be it. Let others embrace the devil, but not Israel. Israel will do what it has always done, offer comfort and aid where it is needed. No other nation in the history of war has ever fed the wartime citizenry of its enemy. Israel does. It is part and parcel of Israeli history. In 1977, thousands and thousands of Vietnamese, Cambodians, citizens were fleeing from their lives of tyranny under the communist regime and had no place to go, and they were left afloat at sea. They were labeled the boat people. On June 10th, 1977, the Uvalli, an Israeli freighter en route to Taiwan, spotted 66 half-starved and sickened Vietnamese. Even though the freighter carried only enough life rafts and jackets for 30-member crew, Captain Meir Tadmor contacted Haifa for permission to take them aboard. Permission was granted, and they were all taken aboard. But no port was willing to accept the starving men, women, and children. Captain Tadmor made an unscheduled stop in Hong Kong for desperately needed medical attention. Authorities in the British colony refused to allow them ashore. Equally inhospitable were the authorities of Taiwan, who prevented anyone from getting off the ship. The refugees received a similar cold reception at Yokohama, Japan. Menachem Begin's first act as Israeli prime minister was to offer asylum to all 66 Vietnamese that were brought aboard the Uvalli. Only then did Taiwan allow the group to come ashore, and then they were quickly brought to Songshan Airport for a flight to Israel. As Begin explained then to US President Jimmy Carter, we never have forgotten the boat with the 900 Jews, the St. Louis, having left Germany in the last weeks before the Second World War, traveling from harbor to harbor, from country to country, crying out for refuge. They were refused. Therefore, it was natural to give those people a haven in the land of Israel. Prime Minister Menachem Begin was being bitingly sharp with President Carter. After the SS St. Louis was denied entry to Havana, The ship with 937 Jewish refugees slowly sailed towards Miami. FDR and the State Department were besieged with urgent requests to take in the Jews. The Jews were so close to Miami that they could see the lights at night. The ship was turned back and returned to Europe. To this day, those images are indelibly etched in the psyche of the Jewish people, especially Israeli leaders. Non-governmental organizations in Israel abound. There is Israel Aid, an Israeli Forum for International Aid. There is FIRST, the Fast Israel Rescue and Search Teams, the IFA, Israeli Flying Aid, and Zaka, Israel's Volunteer Search and Rescue Recovery Union. There's SAC, Save a Child's Heart, SAC, and Latet, which means to give in Hebrew. That's what Israel is. That's what Israel does. That's what Israel is doing so well. That's why they are world experts at this. Who can forget the images of Israeli search teams digging out bodies and the rubble in the aftermath of the apartment collapse in Surfside, Florida in 2021? As much as Israel is suffering from her own losses on October 7, 2023, as severe as that blow was, Israel carries on with her moral and ethical obligation to help others. Since that horrific day, Israel has been involved in 3 significant humanitarian aid efforts: an earthquake response in Thailand in March of 2025, fighting wildfires in Cyprus in July 2025, and then delivering safety and medical aid to the Druze in Al-Suwaida, Syria in July of 2025. Israel does what's right, not what is popular in the eyes of the world. As the world sits and watches, Israel acts. In the end, it is the world that will suffer for having turned their back on Israel, the Jewish state. Coming up next, Points of View. Both of these columns are from the Jerusalem Post, and both are by non-Israelis and non-Americans. The first from Germany and the second from the United Arab Emirates. This column is authored by Sasha Stavsky and was published August 28, 2025. The column is entitled, "I was attacked for hanging hostage posters, and I won't stop until they're all home." Subtitled, "If we don't stand up for ourselves now, louder and stronger than ever, we will have lost." This entire story is shocking, and unfortunately, this is the reality and the hatred that Jews face, especially in Europe. This is how Stavsky begins. "I have been an activist fighting against all forms of anti-Semitism for over 20 years. Not only have I documented the anti-Israel hate for 2 decades, but I have actively gone out of my way to bring attention to all the different forms of anti-Jewish hatred on the one hand, at the same time as I have also tried to reach out to allies, no matter whether within the Jewish community, Christian or Kurdish friends, Iranian exile community, or German public at large. And whenever possible, I have tried to connect even those who have come out to demonstrate against us, trying to find the basis on which we could still communicate with each other to identify even the smallest common denominator, whether it be a longing for peace, combating racism, or anything else." Stavsky is clearly a hero, and he is not just a defender of Israel, but one who believes in educating the masses about the atrocities of Hamas and about radicalism. He will not back down. He continues, "As far back as 2017, I already reached out to a group of loud and radical pro-Palestinian demonstrators who had come to interrupt our Israel Day events in downtown Frankfurt by offering for them to come on stage with me and send a message of peace by holding an Israeli flag, while I offered to hold a Palestinian flag. To this day, people who were not in the audience then have not forgotten how their representative was unable to even touch the Israeli flag, even with tweezers. The revulsion they exposed that day was shocking, yet revealing. And sadly, it is the abominable behavior and the deeply rooted anti-Semitic loathing embedded in their thinking and actions which has only gotten worse since October 7th, 2023, up to the point at which I was just physically attacked with red paint being sprayed all over me. The pictures of Stavsky covered in red paint are jarring and shocking because it looks like blood. When I first looked at it, I thought it was blood. He is not deterred, though. He will not be stopped or intimidated. He is a defender of the Jewish people, and in Germany, no less. Stavsky continues, and what had I done to provoke this violent attack? Had I insulted them? Had I provoked them? Had I done anything which would have deserved being shoved around, screamed at, and insulted? Had I exhibited any form of violence or any other offensive behavior? All things which are typically never found at any of the anti-Semitism demonstrations, at the pro-Israel events, or events on behalf of the hostages. The answer to all these questions is a definitive no. I had been hanging pictures of the hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza tunnels, no more, no less. And when approached by these young people who had their heads wrapped in keffiyehs and faces covered with masks, I stayed calm and expressed my sorrow about innocent people on both sides suffering as a result of the horrible war. And just before the paint ended up all over me, I offered to hold a minute of silence together with them for all innocent victims. But their response is known and so exemplary for the calamity we are facing, violence paired with cheering hate. Stavsky explains that he does not think that he, or for that matter, we can stop anti-Semitism or Jew hatred, which is what I call it. But he wants to slow the progress. I disagree. I think we can push it back into the darkness from which it came. I'll discuss that in another future show. He writes, anti-Semitism, deep-rooted Israel hatred, double standards, delegitimization, and demonization are not new, which is why I always spoke of the tsunami of hate, which our tiny minority of Jews in Germany and worldwide have been facing. I never believed we would be able to stop this tsunami. I only spoke of the need to put barriers in the way of this onslaught, to work with allies, multipliers, politicians, NGOs, and the media to slow it down as much as possible and to raise awareness to counter whatever is happening. Admittedly, I did not foresee the October 7th would expedite the tsunami so fast, making me wonder how much longer diaspora Jews will be able to sustain this before we pack our bags and seek safety. But one thing I know for sure is that this is not the time for us to go into hiding. Stavsky concludes that this battle is not just about Jews, but the future of humanity. He writes, if we do not stand up for ourselves now, louder and stronger than ever, we will have lost. Yes, we're outnumbered. And no, that which October 7th released will not go away. But together with friends and allies, we must continue to make a concerted effort to build barriers of protection for our sake and for the sake of humanity. This is an excellent column which gives a great insight into European life and their battle against Jew hatred. Thank you, Mr. Stavsky. Next up is from the Jerusalem Post, and it's written by Salim Al-Khattabi. It was published on August 26, 2025. The piece is entitled The Mideast Victimhood, How Gaza Dominates the Arab World and Ignores Other Crises. Opinion, subtitle, the Arab media overwhelmingly focus on Gaza, portrayed as the ultimate test of Arab commitment to justice and freedom, ignores crises in Yemen, Sudan, Syria, and more. Al-Khattabi is a UAE political analyst and former Federal National Council candidate. His insight here is very important as he is looking at Gaza and Hamas and Israel from the POV, from the point of view of an Arab thinker from the UAE. This is how he begins. For decades, the Arab media has fixated on Gaza as the central crisis, treating other worldwide Arab tragedies as peripheral. This bias often overlooks humanitarian needs and exposes a network of political and economic interests rather than genuine solidarity. In my opinion, Gaza has become a file to be leveraged in regional power agendas. Consequently, the ongoing suffering ensures the continued influence of certain actors, Consider other parts of the Arab world. Yemen, where years of war have killed hundreds of thousands and pushed millions towards famine. Sudan, immersed since 2023 in a bloody conflict that has displaced millions and created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Libya, oscillating for years between chaos and political vacuum. This raises a clear question. Why does Gaza dominate the Arab discourse while other emergencies are overlooked? This imbalance is rooted in a long history of using the Palestinian cause as an instrument of regional influence. Now Al-Khattabi looks more deeply at the numbers, which tell everything. When you see these numbers, you'll be shocked. The numbers speak for themselves, he says. In 2025, the United Nations estimated that Sudan required $6 billion to aid over 21 million people. Syria needed 8.6 billion for 16.7 million. And Gaza, by comparison, look at this number, allocated 4 billion for 3.3 million people. This disparity shows that Gaza, though suffering, carries disproportionate political and media weight compared to larger and more devastating Arab crises. Al-Khattabi explains that the Palestinian cause in Gaza has been used or abused, that's what I would say, abused, to manipulate Arabs. He writes, in 2010, then Arab League Secretary General Amir Moussa acknowledged the Palestinian cause has often been used as a tool in inter-Arab conflicts. This was a rare admission from a high-level Arab official. It's important to recognize that some Arab states and regions see resolving the Palestinian crisis as a strategic necessity to end regional drain and enable development. He explains that there are many who use this conflict with Israel as a tool to influence and increase their political strength, both locally and within the greater Arab and Muslim world, he writes. Yet other forces rely on the crisis and hostility with Israel to maintain their influence and reap political economic benefits. The duality traps Gaza between the urge to end suffering and the incentive to perpetuate it, reducing victims to mere pawns in a larger game. This dynamic is evident in the Arab media's overwhelming focus on Gaza, portrayed as the ultimate test of Arab commitment to justice and freedom. Meanwhile, the crises in Yemen, Sudan, and Syria, as well as elsewhere, are marginalized in coverage. Al-Khattabi asserts that Gaza is just one of many problems. While they should all get attention, they do not, and that upsets involved populations. But it's also unjust and not Muslim, he says, because the sanctity of life is important. All lives have value, he asserts. He continues, Gaza should not monopolize Arab solidarity, nor should other crises be neglected. Al-Khattabi concludes, writing that it is essential to change the approach for the sake of truth, morality, and fairness, but also to help others in need, he writes. This change is not merely about media coverage. It's about redefining human security priorities in the region. As long as media control remains with dictators and benefits from the endless conflict, the situation will not improve. But with more diverse platforms and agendas, comparisons between Gaza and other crises will become more balanced. The Arab public will see a complete picture, not a single carefully framed narrative. All in all, the real tragedy is not how many cameras are pointed at a wound, but how many lives are lost and dreams buried, whether in Gaza, Sana'a, Khartoum, or Aleppo. If Arabs wish to reclaim true solidarity, they must distribute attention and effort fairly. No single issue should dominate the discourse. To do otherwise is a betrayal of truth and brotherhood, a principle that should grant every Arab life equal value, without discrimination or favoritism. Al-Khattabi is a welcome voice and a fresh idea coming out of the Arab world, but we have not heard much else on this. I do not see a redirecting of energy away from Israel, especially because that energy has been so effective at demonizing and marginalizing Israel on the world stage and glorifying Hamas. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. I'm going to show you 4 cartoons today. First up shows a tank, an Israeli tank, outside a Gaza door and destroyed home on the cliff. On the tank, there's a sign which reads, Israeli takeover. The tank tells Gaza will allow civilians to evacuate, and Gaza asks, to where? This is simply a painful situation, but President Trump has already started making interesting and creative suggestions that include $5,000, free rent for 3 years, 1 year free food, and $75,000 apartment when you return to Gaza after it's rebuilt. Next up is a press tent, a media tent, in Gaza with a missile through it, blood, drones, destruction all around. The suggestion is that Israel is killing the media people, press people. What is missing is that some of those media people have been members of Hamas, and one actually was a kidnapper holding a kidnapped victim. This next cartoon is a skull made of forks and spoons. It's pretty eerie and pretty self-explanatory. Finally, this cartoon is entitled Hamas's Last Victim, and it's Harvard with a huge bomb crater in the middle. It's totally bombed out. Those who sided with Hamas took the side of evil, and they are now paying the price. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Hamas confirmed the death of Mohammed Sinwar about 3.5 months after his assassination by the IDF. In a statement released by the terror organization, his photos were distributed alongside Hamas leaders referred to as martyrs. Sinwar, a senior Hamas official and the brother of the organization's leader, Yahya Sinwar, whom the IDF had assassinated in October 2024, was killed in an attack in mid-May on a command center beneath the European hospital in Khan Yunis. About 2 weeks after the attack, the IDF confirmed his assassination. Hamas assassinated the head of Abu Samra clan in Deir al-Balach in central Gaza. This, according to reports from the Strip, Abu Samatra was one of the prominent opponents of Hamas's continued rule in Gaza. He was assassinated by Hamas by gunfire near his home. Egyptian Finance Minister Ahmed Kuchuk reported that Cairo has lost nearly $3 billion in Suez Canal revenue in 2024 to 2025 due to attacks by the Houthi and the rebels in the Red Sea. The United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio has denied visas to Palestinian leaders who were scheduled to attend UN General Assembly in September. According to the report by Fox, based on internal documents that they obtained, the report also indicated that Rubio blocked entry visas for senior officials and Palestinian Authority and PLO, including Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen also known as. According to the report, the decision is based on findings that the Palestinian Authority and the PLO are violating American commitments through unilateral declaration of a Palestinian state, encouraging violence, promoting anti-Semitism, and severely supporting terrorism. As a result, visa issuance has been prohibited for a period of at least 180 days. A U.S. State Department official continued and reported that they have denied visas to 80 other members in the authority. Earlier, Abbas's office stated that the U.S. Department's decision violates international law. The American administration must reverse its decision and allow the Palestinian delegation to enter. They are wrong, by the way. It's not in violation of international law. The Trump administration has also halted the issuance of visas to Palestinian passport holders, including those seeking entry to the United States for medical treatments, university studies, or family visits. This was all reported by the New York Times. A diplomatic source in Turkey clarified to Reuters that the Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan's declaration about closing airspace to Israel, Turkish airspace to Israel, referred only to Israeli government flights and arms shipments. The source stated that the foreign minister's statement only concerned Israeli official flights, flights carrying weapons and ammunition to Israel, not a ban on commercial flights. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one picante piece of information. This 2-minute clip is scary. It is brought to us by memory, an outstanding resource, without which I do not know what I would do. This is a film of a rally outside the Israeli embassy in London on August 25th, 2025. The speaker is Salim Nusseibeh. This is the rhetoric, bile, the hatred, and the true sense of hate that is enveloping Europe and part of the United States. Watch this clip.
Know what you want. What you want is Palestine 1948. What you want is from the river to the sea. What you want is the destruction of the Zionist entity. What you want is an end to Israel. What you want is an end to American hegemony. What you want is liberation of the Middle East. That tomorrow, this will be the embassy of Palestine. This will be the embassy of Palestine. There won't be any Israel. There won't be an Israel anymore. And we will all be eating kunafa in there before we organize our trips to a free Palestine bi'idhnillah. If you want peace in the Middle East, and I say this to the policeman over there and to everyone watching and everyone listening, our friends and our enemies. I say it when you see the bombing in Damascus, when you see the bombing in Beirut, when you see the bombing all over the Middle East and in Yemen, the aggression against the free peoples of the world who stand against Zionism, know this. Israel is the tumor in the body of the Middle East, and there won't be peace for the Middle East until that tumor is destroyed, until that tumor is removed, until that tumor remains in the books of history. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Palestine Arabia, Palestine Arabia, Palestine Arabia, Palestine Arabia. Intifada, 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 intifada.
Wow, that's just unbelievable. That is what much of the world hears and believes. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.